At the end of class, Pablo would wait, as always, for his little sister Eloisa, whose classes ended a little later today. They always walked home together. Eloisa appeared disheveled and flushed. Pablo asked, "Is something wrong?" "No, we had gym class last class. Where are we going now?" "There's a kiosk on the first floor, and there's a book I need on programming. My dad gave me money for it." "But you already have such books." "What I have is for beginners. If you want, you can learn it yourself. I have to move on." They left the school, walked down the street onto the main avenue, and turned toward the hotel, where there was a kiosk selling various magazines, including books. Looking in the window, they went behind the kiosk, and suddenly, through the glass, they saw their mother standing on the other side of the kiosk, at the reception desk, with their acquaintance Marcelo. They were getting a room, and Mom had warned them, "No calls for me today. If it's urgent, call Daddy. I have a big meeting this afternoon." Standing behind the kiosk, Pablo and Eloisa listened to the room number where Marcelo and their mother were staying. Not knowing what to do, Pablo dialed his father, who answered immediately. He briefly outlined the situation. The father answered, "Son, wait for me. I'm just in your neighborhood. I'm going in the car, and I'll be there in about 10 minutes. Dad, we'll be outside the room." They went up to the right floor, went to the right room. They waited for about 5 minutes. Eloisa got tired of it, and went to the door and started knocking on it with her foot. After a while, the door opened, and Marcelo stood on the doorstep in a hotel robe. Eloisa said, "Call your mother." "But your mom's not here. And I'm going to call the police now and tell them you tried to lure me into the room and my brother saved me. Isn't that right, Pablo?" "Yes, I heard it myself." Just then, the elevator door opened and their father came out. Marcelo wanted to close the door, but he couldn't handle Pablo. Eloisa slipped into the room and saw her mother, sitting on the bed in the same robe as Marcelo's, who had just taken a shower. Alejandro, who entered the room with his son, saw the same picture. Seeing his family, Maria cried. Marcelo babbled, "Alejandro, you've got it all wrong." Alejandro turned around and hit Marcelo. The blow sent him crashing under the window of the one-room suite, his nose bleeding. Maria jumped out of bed and begged, "Alejandro, don't." Alejandro took Eloisa's hand and said to Pablo, "Let's get out of here." As soon as they stepped outside, Marcelo shrieked, "Maria, if my wife finds out about this, I'm finished. Go wash the blood off you. I'll get dressed. I told you we shouldn't do this. You wanted to stir up the blood. Did I stir it up? And how did you make me look in front of my family? I didn't make anyone look bad. I don't know where your family came from. I got punched in the face too, and I'm your boss. What am I going to tell my wife now?" "That's for you to think about." "Think what?" "Call your husband. Stop him. He won't answer. Get dressed quick. I'm taking you home to stop your husband. Besides, we didn't have anything. How are we going to prove it to him now? How do we explain it to the kids? They won't believe it. I'll be disgraced for the rest of my life." Meanwhile, Alejandro and the children were waiting for the elevator when he felt a strong, squeezing pain behind his chest. From somewhere came a growing sense of anxiety and fear. It became harder to breathe, and there was pain in his arms, jaw, neck, shoulders, and back. As they entered the elevator, weakness and nausea came over him. There was an unbearable headache. He realized it was either a stroke or a heart attack. The first to notice that he was ill was Eloisa, who said, "Papa, you look white. Aren't you sick?" At this time, Alejandro's eyes were swimming and his legs refused to walk. Pablo picked up his father, and after exiting the elevator, sat him in a chair in the lobby. Eloisa turned to the women sitting in the foyer. An ambulance was immediately called, which arrived rather quickly as it was traveling from a call from a house nearby. Maria and Marcelo had taken the elevator down to the underground parking lot, so they were unaware that Alejandro had been taken away by ambulance. The children had left with him. Marcelo drove Maria to the house, but did not enter the yard. She got out of the car, went up to her apartment, but no one was home. She called Marcelo, who listened to her, and ordered her to stay home. Stay home. They're gonna show up anyway. Do what you want, but what happened in the hotel must not go beyond the hotel. Maria heated up dinner for the kids, figuring they would be home soon, but at 6 p.m. they were gone. They didn't show up at 8 p.m. either. Maria began calling their phones and tried to locate the children through an established Find Me program. Meanwhile, Pablo and Eloisa sat in the hospital and adamantly refused to leave. The doctors, who knew the reasons why they were there, showed solidarity, fed them, and put them up for the night in an empty room. Alejandro was in intensive care. The whole complex of measures had been performed, and now he was fighting the disease himself. The next day, a cardiologist came out of the intensive care unit, approached Pablo and Eloisa, and said, "Your father will be fine. The stress he'd been under had taken its toll, but he'll be fine. You should make up your mind. Don't get me wrong, we can't have you living here. This is a hospital, not a hostel." Pablo answered, "Eloisa and I will go to the school and decide where to live. As long as Dad is in the hospital, we're not going home." "Did they feed you at least?" "Yes, thank you very much. We were fed." So 15-year-old Pablo was left with the difficult burden of supporting his father and little sister, and he decided to go home, but first after school, to go to the hospital, in the hope that his father would come to his senses. Maria did not wait at home, neither for the children nor for her husband. In the morning she went to school, hoping to meet the children there, but she found no one. They had just missed each other because Pablo and Eloisa were late for class. Without waiting for the children, she went to see Alejandro at work, but he wasn't there. None of his co-workers could explain anything. From there, she went to her office and was immediately summoned by Marcelo. He only had one question. "Did you sort things out with Alejandro?" "I haven't seen him." "Not him, not the kids. They didn't show up at home." "Well, he couldn't have gone to his parents' house in the middle of the school year. Did you call them?" "What if they're not there?" "You realize I'm sitting on a powder keg. If my wife finds out about my adventure, she'll kill me. What were you thinking when you were chasing me? And now you're putting it all on me. Even though I'm the one who's hurt the most. I was hurt too. I got punched in the face by your husband. I had a hard time explaining to my wife yesterday why my face was broken. I cited some unknown hooligans in the alley. At school, Eloisa was in the same class as Marcelo's daughter. The girls were quite friendly with each other. At recess, Ava, Marcelo's daughter, asked her friend, "Why are you late for school? Daddy couldn't let you down." "Yeah, he was a little sick." "Then why was your mom standing outside the school?" "I figured she was looking for you." "I don't know who she was looking for. We had some hooligans beat up my dad in the back alley yesterday." "Ava, your daddy didn't get beat up in the alley. My dad hit him when he found him in a hotel room with my mom. They were wearing the same hotel gown." "How do you know?" "I was there with Pablo too, and I saw everything." Eloisa told her friend everything that happened at the hotel. The only thing she didn't tell her friend was that her father was in the hospital. At the end of the class, Eloisa and Pablo went to the hospital, where good news was waiting for them, and the doctor allowed them to meet him. They were given white coats and led to the intensive care unit. The father was awake. When he saw them, he asked in a quiet voice, "How are you doing?" Pablo answered cheerfully, "Everything is fine. We're just on our way home from school. I know you spent the night at the hospital. Are you thinking of going home?" Eloisa and I discussed that option, and we decided, we can't do anything until you're discharged, but we'll live apart from Mom. "But Mom didn't do anything bad to you." "Dad, she betrayed you, which means she betrayed us. And how will you live apart?" "Very simple. We'll cook and do our own laundry. We'll share a room with Eloisa." "What's with the spare room?" When you get discharged, we'll put you in this room. Or are you going to make up with Mom? Pablo, I haven't decided anything yet. I just woke up, but you and Eloisa are right. I have to make a decision, and it's probably a divorce. I want your opinion. You and me. And now we're gonna live on our own. As long as it doesn't interfere with school. I foresee difficulties for you financially. There's a bank card hidden in a drawer in my office. I've been saving for a vacation, but you need it more. I'll get out of here, get back on my feet, and then you'll feel better. Does Mom know where I am? No, we haven't contacted her. We haven't seen her, and we won't tell her anything. The doctor said her visits are not advisable, so don't tell her anything. Pablo and Eloisa returned home. In the kitchen, Pablo divided the plates and pots, prepared lunch from the food he had brought, and fed his sister. She marveled, "Pablo, I didn't know you could cook so well." "Eloisa, it's not me. It's the internet." "You're so sneaky. I'm doing my homework and you're making dinner on the internet. Hurry up and eat. I've got dishes to wash and homework to do." Ava came home and at dinner told her mother about where her father had really been beaten. Vera listened attentively to her daughter and called Maria. When she answered, she asked, "Maria, is there anything you want to tell me about what happened yesterday at the hotel?" "Vera, I'm sorry. It was a stupid thing to do. I shouldn't have agreed to it, but your Marcelo was so convincing I couldn't resist, especially since, as you know, he's my boss." "How long have you been seeing him?" "He's been nailing me for a while. You know, he'd give me a hug, a friendly peck on the cheek. But we never really met. We socialized at work, at corporate events. But you were at corporate parties, and me, and my husband. All we did was dance, and yesterday our secretary didn't show up for work, so we asked the old lady from accounting to sit in the waiting room. I guess Marcelo didn't like it, so he called me up and suggested we go to the hotel for lunch. I'm not stupid. I knew what the offer meant." "And you accepted it?" "Yes, I admit I accepted it, although I had a choice." "And what did your husband tell you?" "Alejandro didn't tell me anything. He came into the room, hit Marcelo, took the kids, then left. I haven't seen anyone yet. Not the kids, not Alejandro. They didn't spend the night at home." "I don't know, but your daughter was at school. Did you sleep at home yourself?" "I went straight from the hotel, followed them home, but they never showed up." "What are you going to tell them now?" "I don't know, but I know what I'm going to tell Marcelo tonight. The company he runs belongs to my family, so tomorrow he's leaving. He only got the job because he was my husband. Maybe I should have left him the way he was. Although as an engineer, he's not much of an engineer either." "Should I pack too?" "No, I thought Marcelo was picking on you, painting your relationship and your work in a negative light. Now I realize that he was just covering up his failures in his work and making himself out to be a god that you were supposed to worship. Tomorrow, I'm going to offer you the job as my deputy. This is so you can learn the basics of running a company like ours. Maybe one day you'll be CEO. Marcelo was always jealous of your abilities. I knew he didn't like your husband because he was a successful engineer. And know that, unfortunately, you're not his first victim. Your secretary wanted to quit too. I met with her today. Unfortunately, she's going through a divorce. So she was seeing Marcelo too. Yeah, for a month. I don't think Alejandro will forgive me either. Alas, your Alejandro will light his way forward by the lights behind his bridges, and he will take the children too. But he cannot do that. I will not give him the children. You've already lost them back at the hotel. Even if they're there for you, they'll never forgive you for that betrayal. In their eyes, you betrayed not only Alejandro, you betrayed them. Think about how you're going to live your life." The conversation was over. Maria thought she did not know what to do, whether she should warn Marcelo about what awaited him at home. She decided she didn't need to. Marcelo came home in the evening. He decided to be a dutiful husband tonight. At home, He found his father-in-law and mother-in-law. Vera called everyone to the table. He asked, "Where are the children? They've already had dinner and are doing their chores. You hadn't forgotten that Ava has school tomorrow. What about Mario?" "Nothing. He's going to kindergarten. Why don't you want to hire a nanny? We have money. I make good money. Why don't me and Evaldo have a drink? Didn't you see that they came in their own car? Dad's driving. And about your earnings. You're making very little money. Today was your last day as CEO, and your last day in this house as a husband. Vera, if you're referring to last night's incident, Maria, and I had nothing. I know because her husband and the kids came over and gave you that bruise. But nothing happened. As far as I know, you dated Dolores, the secretary, for 6 months before you replaced her with your secretary. I know I cheated on you, but that's no reason to fire me. Yes, it is. You have no idea how much money your Dolores took out of the firm's budget. All I can tell you is she's in custody, and she's testifying now." "And who arrested her?" "The police, and I think they're coming for you too. So go to your office and hand in your letter of resignation, effective today. And then the police will come after me. What happens to you afterwards is of no interest to me or my parents. You'll sleep here tonight." Marcelo went into the office, sat down at the table, and after thinking it over, wrote a letter of resignation effective today. Then he changed his clothes, took warm clothes, and left the cottage. He did not say goodbye to anyone. Meanwhile, after work, Maria was approaching the house and saw that there was a light in the kitchen window. Someone was home. She quickly went up to the floor, opened the door. There were no clothes in the hallway, but there was a light on in her son's room. Pablo himself walked from the kitchen to his room and closed the door behind him, completely oblivious to the fact that his mother had appeared. Quickly removing her outer clothing, Maria walked through the rooms and made sure Alejandro was nowhere to be found. She assumed he was in the room with the children. She approached and knocked timidly. There was no answer. Again, no one answered. She opened the door herself. In the room, the children were sitting at the table doing their homework. "I knocked, didn't you hear?" "We heard, but we're busy with our homework." "Where's Daddy?" "We don't know, maybe in a friend's house." "I want to talk to him." "Does he want to?" "When he contacts us, we'll tell him what you want." "I want to talk to you too." "We don't want to." "You'll have dinner." "We've already eaten. From now on, you don't have to cook for us." "Why not?" "We'll cook for ourselves. We have to learn to live without you." "What about me?" "You have Uncle Marcelo." "I just don't know how Aunt Vera will feel about it. Now, if you'll excuse us, we have homework to do." Without getting anything out of the children, Maria went to her room. For 3 days in the house, there was a silent war between the children and Maria. But finally, the information that Alejandro is in intensive care reached her. She found out about it by accident. At her request, an acquaintance called Alejandro at work and introduced himself as a customer for one of the projects. He said that he needed a personal meeting with Alejandro, to which the employee replied that it would not be soon, as Alejandro was in intensive care with a heart attack. Maria, upon hearing this news, rushed to the hospital. There she confirmed Alejandro's presence in the intensive care unit, but they refused to let her see him. Maria was surprised to see Pablo and Eloisa coming down the stairs in white coats. They had, at the end of their lessons, visited their father. Realizing that the children would ignore her, she asked the nurse on duty who the attending physician was, Alejandro, and how she could talk to him. She was shown an office on the first floor and told that Dr. Juan was there now. Maria went to the office, knocked, and heard, "Come in." Maria entered and asked worriedly, "Juan?" "Yes, it's me." "Tell me, is Alejandro, who is lying in the intensive care unit, a patient of yours?" "Yes, that's my patient." "And who are you?" "I'm his wife, Maria." "I'm listening." "Tell me, will I be able to see him?" Not anytime soon. I can't put Alejandro under stress, and you talking to him would undo everything I've accomplished to get your husband out of that world. What happened to him? You don't know. You killed him. He had a heart attack. The pain and the injuries were terrible, and yes, he was on the edge. I brought him out of it today. The kids are a big help. I think he will get better every day. I realize what I did was wrong, and I need to apologize to him. You broke his heart. He'll never recover from that. But I hope he'll get strong enough to be a normal person again, not an invalid. You must be surprised at what's happened. Not at all. More and more men are being brought in with heart problems. My opinion is this: you can't trust a woman for long. Eventually she'll give you away. That's not true. You have the wrong idea about women. Is that what you're telling me? But I love him. I don't think you ever loved him. How could you love your husband and go to a hotel with another man? For all I know, with your boss, who is sort of a friend of your family. But we have grown children. And do you know that when the ambulance brought him in, your children were in the hospital until the morning, waiting for the results of the initial treatment? They only agreed to lie down in the morning, in the ward, and sleep for a while. And then they went to school. Why didn't they call me? They must have seen too much. They told me what happened. Maria was never able to visit Alejandro, but she already knew where to find her husband. Leaving the hospital, Maria began to realize the doctor was right. Everything the children had seen had affected them. She was sure that no one would ever find out about this little prank of hers, but she didn't expect Marcelo to turn out to be such a womanizer. Vera had thrown Marcelo out of her life without a moment's hesitation. Maria also realized that he would do the same to her and Alejandro. She had ruined her relationship with the children she loved most in the world for a very long time, and she didn't know if their relationship could be repaired when Alejandro got out of the hospital, though they were probably ruined forever. After lunch, she went back to work. Vera kept her word and put Maria as deputy general manager. Being close to the management, she heard and knew a lot of things. She knew that Marcelo had left town and the police were looking for him. It was a shame he hadn't even called her. The head of the administrative department was on her own recognizance. At the same time, Vera applied to the court for a divorce from Marcelo. As Maria found out she didn't claim alimony, I asked her, "I haven't given up yet. You can make that claim at any time. But it doesn't make any sense right now. I have enough to support my children without denying myself too much. Tell me, why did you keep my job and even promote me? I guess I feel guilty. You know everything about me." What do I know? Marcelo and his buddy Roges decided to create a little harem of women to help them with their contracting needs. It was simple. They organized picnics at Roges' cottage with the women and representatives who came to sign contracts. What would we tell our husbands? You would be urgently seconded. I don't understand. We were already doing well. What's that for? If things were going well, the police wouldn't be dealing with Marcelo today. How are things with your husband? Nothing. The important thing is that I found him. Where's he hiding? He was hospitalized. He got sick at the hotel. Heart attack. The kids figured it out and sounded the alarm. And that's what saved him. Have you met him? No, the doctor wouldn't let me. He said it was too dangerous for him, but they let the kids in. I'll talk to the kids tonight. That evening, Maria set up to talk to the children. When she arrived, they were home. The lights were on in the room they occupied. Maria took off her outer clothes, washed her face, and went to the door and knocked. But there was no answer. She pushed the door open. Pablo and Eloisa were in the room doing their homework. His son was helping Eloisa with her homework, explaining something to her. Seeing his mother on the doorstep, Pablo said, "Actually, we're doing homework." I was knocking. We knocked on the room for a long time too, until we got the door to be opened. Nevertheless, we're listening. Why didn't you tell me Dad was in intensive care? You weren't interested, and it would have hurt Dad. But I would have helped him. With what? How would you have helped him? Would you have come with Uncle Marcelo to finish him off at the hospital? Marcelo got kicked out of his job for that. We know that. It's just that Eloisa told her friend Ava how her dad got that black eye. He was telling everyone the legend about the hooligans in the alley. Maria looked at her children, knelt down, and sobbed. Children, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I never meant to hurt you or Daddy. I didn't think anything would happen because of this. I love you. Pablo and Eloisa didn't go near their mother, but they were upset too. They had not at all expected their mother to turn into a pathetic and broken figure in front of them. Meanwhile, Alejandro lay in the ward, reminiscing about his past life. The relationship he had with his wife had worked out like most married couples. When he met Maria, she was without a doubt to him the most beautiful and charming woman he had ever seen in his life. They met at university. He was in his 3rd year by this time, and she had just entered her 1st year. They dated for over a year before he asked her to marry him. He believed that he loved her as he was fascinated by her. He couldn't take his eyes off her and believed that everything she did was right. And then a big lie crept into her actions, and it was the children who caught her in the lie. Alejandro didn't know what to do next. He realized that as a family, they had ceased to exist. But there were still children. Pablo had to study 2 more years to graduate from high school and then another university. Eloisa was more difficult. She had 5 more years to study at school and then another university. That meant he had no time to think about illness, although the doctor hinted at the possibility of disability. The doctor said the critical period after a heart attack is the 1st month, and here it's been a week. Although, as the cardiologist pointed out, Alejandro had no diseases that worsened the prognosis and his chances of survival were very high. Alejandro knew he was alone and had no one to lean on. He would not allow Maria into his life. Weakness kept him up. Toward evening, the attending physician came in, asked the usual questions about his well-being. Alejandro asked, "Did my wife come?" "She did, but I didn't allow her to visit." "How did she know about me?" "That I don't know. I'm a cardiologist, not a psychologist. I don't think your kids told her about you." "I don't think so either. They come to me every day and talk to me about school, about themselves, about the town news, that's all. Nothing too much. As you can see, they keep you safe." When the time came, Alejandro was moved from the ICU to the cardiac ward. He called the plant manager. He promised he wouldn't fire Alejandro. He'd give him time to recover. A month later, he was ready to be discharged. At his request, an acquaintance drove the car that was parked outside the hotel to their yard. One day, his son called a cab and brought Alejandro home. There he was placed in the room that had previously been reserved for Eloisa. Maria realized that Alejandro was home, but there were 2 notes hanging on the door: "Do not knock," and "Do not enter." Maria walked in on the children, asking, "Can I talk to Daddy?" "No, he just fell asleep. No need to disturb him." "When can I talk to him?" "According to the doctor's recommendation, 10 days, and please keep the house quiet. No noise." For 10 days, the house was completely quiet. Maria understood that Pablo cooked breakfast, lunch, and dinner. He also helped Eloisa with her lessons. When those deadlines expired, someone called in the evening. The children were not expecting anyone, so Maria went to open the door. There was a mailwoman standing outside the door, and she asked, "Are you Maria?" "Yes, I am." "Can I see the document?" "No problem." Maria showed her passport. She was given a notice to sign and handed a package from the court. She opened the package. There was a summons and an annex to it, a statement of claim to the court for divorce. Maria went into the children's room and asked confusedly, "What's this?" "I think it's a summons." Dad drew up a statement of claim to the court and hired a lawyer to represent him. "I want to talk to the father." "I'll ask him." Pablo went to his father's room, came back, and said He woke up when the doorbell rang. "You can go in to see him." Maria rushed into Alejandro's room. Alejandro was half lying on the bed. He asked, "What do you want?" "I want to know why you're divorcing me." Alejandro took a couple more breaths to get his blood pressure under control and supplemented, "I filed on the grounds of irreconcilable differences, not adultery," which was the case. "I think I did more than fair. I'll leave you half of everything we've acquired. We'll split this apartment. 1 room for you, 2 rooms for me and the kids, 3 if we can. If I pay extra for the 3rd room, I can afford it. My job's all right. I'll get my old job back when I finish rehab. All communication between us is through my attorney. His phone number and place of employment are listed in the complaint. It's no use arguing with me about the divorce. And as you realize, Pablo and Eloisa are staying with me or things will get very bad." "But what would I do without you?" "I don't know, but that day you ripped my heart out, and not only me. I don't know if you noticed or not, but our kids are all grown up now, but they need help. You're going to rehab. I'm probably not going to rehab. I'm going to slowly recover at our doctor's center. I'm going to start working part-time. I've already made arrangements with my director. I love you and the kids. I can't do it without you. You shouldn't have thought of that before you went up to the hotel room in front of the kids. I didn't know they could see me. And if you had, that's a stupid question. What if they hadn't? Although you know I don't care what you say or what you want. But I love you and I love the kids, and what I did was stupid. Then why did you have a lover? No, don't tell me anything about him or yourself. If you're done with him, find another man or 2, as many as you want. You don't need me as a husband in the singular. Now, if you have nothing more to say, go away, I'm tired." In the end, Maria fought the divorce. The court gave her 3 months to reconcile. During that time, Alejandro looked for an apartment swap. At the last court hearing, his lawyer announced his offer. By this time, Maria was completely broken. She practically did not object to the lawsuit. She sadly listened to her children, who were being questioned in court, deciding who they wanted to live with. Both Pablo and Eloisa declared that whatever the court decided, they would not leave their father. The court granted all of Alejandro's claims. The divorce was granted. Alejandro, Pablo, and Eloisa moved into another apartment. Maria also moved into the new apartment. Alejandro left her some of the property. Maria worked at her job until her retirement. She died a lonely woman who never traveled out of town again except for business. She looked back on her actions and berated herself for what she had done. The inability to say no had caused her loved ones pain that would never leave them. She tried to cope with the depression and guilt, but realized she would never be a better mother to Pablo and Eloisa, a better wife to Alejandro. They just moved on and threw her out of their lives. As for Marcelo, his fate is unknown. He disappeared from the town and never appeared there again. Marcelo's wife Vera ran the business for a long time and eventually handed the reins over to Maria after training her. She herself concentrated on raising her children. Thanks to everyone who took the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing if you haven't already. Feel free to share your thoughts on the events in the comments below. Take care.